The Zorathian homeworld burned. From the observation deck of the High Council Tower, Admiral Kuroth could see the sky glowing red from enemy bombardment. Huge trails of fire crossed the atmosphere where defense satellites had been destroyed and fallen back to the surface. In the distance, the towering spires of the capital city shook as deep explosions rolled through the ground. He pressed his claws into the cold steel railing. It was supposed to be impossible for the Krell Dominion to breach this far into Zorathian space. For centuries, their fleets had defended the border worlds. For centuries, their enemy had been kept away. But now, the Krell flagships were above. Their homeworld, pounding the planet without mercy. An alarm shrieked from the control room behind him. "Admiral!" cried a young officer, scales pale with fear. "Sector 3 orbital ring has fallen, all stations destroyed." Kuroth didn't flinch. He already knew. He had felt the tremors. He had seen the fire. "Where is our fleet?" the officer swallowed. "Down to 1/3 strength. The enemy controls the upper orbit. Our ground forces are fighting in the city streets." The admiral turned to face the council chamber. Inside, the leaders of the HFY Zorathian alliance were gathered around the great holotable, their faces grim and their voices sharp. "This is the end," said High Speaker Voron, her voice trembling. "The Krell have broken our lines. No reinforcements are coming. We must surrender before the population is slaughtered." "Surrender?" Kuroth's voice was low but full of anger. "You have seen what the Krell do to those who surrender. Entire worlds erased, populations harvested for labor camps. Do you think they will spare us?" Another counselor bared his teeth in fear. "If we keep fighting, they will wipe us out. Completely. They will wipe us out either way," Kuroth growled. "Better to die fighting than chained in their minds." The chamber fell silent except for the low hum of the holotable, displaying a three-dimensional map of their star system. Red markers enemy ships filled the display like drops of blood spreading through water. Blue markers their ships were. Few and scattered, retreating toward the planet. Every few seconds, another blue light blinked out. Suddenly, the door to the chamber slammed open. A communications officer burst in, panting. "Admiral, we've detected something." His voice cracked with disbelief. Kuroth stepped forward quickly. "Report." The officer brought up a new display on the holotable. A single bright contact appeared at the edge of the system, far from the main battle. The signal was large, far larger than any Zorathian or Krell vessel. "What is it?" asked Voron. "More enemy reinforcements?" The officer shook his head. "Not Krell. The signature does not match any known design. Energy output is extreme. It's moving at impossible speed." "Impossible?" Kuroth asked. "It will cross the system in less than 6 hours," the officer said. Admiral, that's faster than any ship we've ever recorded." The counselors looked at one another in confusion and fear. "Could it be another enemy?" one asked. Kuroth's eyes narrowed. "Or something else? The city burns outside. The capital was chaos. Civilian transports overloaded with refugees lifted from the city's landing pads, heading toward the few remaining evacuation ships in orbit. Anti-air defenses barked constantly, trying to hold back Krell bombers streaking through the sky. The great towers of the city, symbols of Zorathian power, now lay broken and burning in the streets. Soldiers fought block by block. Plasma fire lit the dark, smoke-filled air. Krell war machines, towering walkers with thick armor and heavy cannons, marched through avenues, blasting apart anything in their way. On a rooftop, Commander Vechlin fired his rail rifle at an approaching Krell squad. The projectile punched through 2 enemy soldiers, dropping them instantly. He ducked as a beam weapon scorched the air above his head. "Pull back!" he shouted to his unit. "We can't hold this sector." As his soldiers fell back, a deep roar filled the sky. Everyone, Zorathian and Krell, alike looked up. A burning Krell cruiser was falling from orbit, trailing black smoke and fire. It slammed into the city outskirts in a massive explosion that shook the ground for kilometers. VKL-IN stared. The Krell fleet was winning. That meant someone else had destroyed that cruiser. The unknown signal back in the council chamber. Karoth studied the incoming signal. It was still too far to see any visual image, but the readings told him one thing: it was huge. How large? He asked. The officer hesitated. If our sensors are correct, over 15 kilometers in length. Gasps filled the room. The largest Zorathian ships were barely 3 kilometers long. Even Krell flagships did not reach half of that size. No vessel that size could move so fast, a counselor protested. It should tear itself apart. Karoth ignored him. Where is it heading? The officer looked up, eyes wide. Directly toward our planet. Hours passed like a lifetime. The enemy bombardment continued, but all eyes kept returning to the mysterious contact. It moved like a predator, swift, unstoppable, never changing course. As it drew closer, the Krell fleet noticed it too. Enemy transmissions spiked. Multiple ships broke formation, moving toward the edge of the system to intercept. The Krell were not cautious, they were aggressive hunters. Whatever this was, they intended to destroy it before it reached the planet. First blood, the first Krell. Intercept group met the object in deep space. For a few moments, the battle was just dots of light on the council's display. Then, one by one, the Krell markers vanished. No Zorathian ship was there to fight alongside it. The mysterious vessel had destroyed them alone. The room fell silent. Replay the sensor feed. Karoth ordered. They watched in awe. The contact fired no wide salvos, no long barrages. It fired with precision, single bright flashes of energy that tore Krell ships apart instantly, punching through their shields as if they were nothing. The weapon signatures were unlike anything in Zorathian databases. This is no ordinary warship, Karoth whispered. Enemy panic far above the burning capital. The Krell siege commander received the battle report. He was a massive, armored creature, his voice like grinding stone. Impossible, he growled. No ship travels that fast. No ship destroys a strike group in seconds. His second-in-command hissed. We should pull back the fleet until we know what it is. The commander slammed a clawed fist into the table. No, we crush it before it reaches orbit. Gather every ship we have. The Krell pulled their siege fleet away from the planet, forming a massive wall of warships in high orbit. Hundreds of vessels, battle cruisers, destroyers, carriers, all bristling with weapons. The Zorathians watched from the surface as the red markers gathered into a single formation. The unknown contact kept coming. The approach by now, the signal was close enough for the first low-resolution visuals. A dark silhouette filled the feed, long, angular, covered in sharp armor plating. No curves, no elegance, just raw, brutal design. A monster of metal. Energy surges rolled off its hull like waves. What is that? Whispered Vorin. Karoth stared at the image. A warship. But whose? Another counselor asked. The communications officer's eyes were fixed on his console. Income in transmission, not from Krell channels. Unknown language, trying to translate. Static filled the speakers. Then, a voice, deep, calm, alien, yet somehow clear. This is the United Terran Navy vessel, Leviathan. Stand by. The chamber froze. Karoth felt the name burn into his mind. He had heard rumors, whispers of a species from the far edge of the galaxy. Isolated, mysterious, not part of any known alliance. But rumors were not reality. Until now, the Leviathan did. Not slow. Orbit when it reached the Krell blockade, the warship did not maneuver away. It drove straight into the center of the enemy line. The Krell opened fire. Hundreds of beams and missiles filled the void. Every shot hit Leviathan's shields and vanished. The return fire was devastating. The Zorathians watched as entire enemy destroyers were vaporized by single blasts. Krell carriers were torn in half. Their formation collapsed in minutes. Then, without warning, the Leviathan stopped firing. For a moment, the battlefield was quiet, only drifting wreckage. It was scanning the planet. The voice: Zorathian forces. The voice came again, now translated perfectly into their language. We have detected your distress signals. Your enemy is now our target. Hold your positions. The comms went silent. On the surface, soldiers and civilians alike looked up at the glowing shape in the night sky, larger than any moon. Dark and terrible, hanging above them. For the first time in weeks, the Zorathians felt something they had not known since the war began. Hope. Not relief. Admiral Karath knew better than to celebrate too soon. He had seen enough battles to know that one ship, even a ship like this, could not win a war alone. But as he watched the Leviathan carve through the Krell fleet, he felt something else too. A question: if the humans had such power, why had they stayed hidden until now? And what would they want in return for saving his people? The answers, he feared, would come soon. Far above, the Leviathan began to turn its massive engines, glowing brighter. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. The Leviathan hung in orbit like a shadow that blotted out the stars. From the surface of the Zorathian homeworld, it was impossible to see all of it at once. Its hull stretched across the sky, a dark mass that seemed to drink in the light around it. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Even the Krell seemed unsure. The Zorathian Defense Command received a flood of sensor data. The ship's length confirmed at more than 15 kilometers. Armor density off the scale. Shield output unknown. Weapon systems too many to count. Admiral Karath stood at the center of the High Council chamber, his eyes fixed on the holodisplay. He had seen the great battleships of the Zorathian fleet. He had seen the massive Krell dreadnoughts. But the Leviathan was something else entirely. It was not built for defense or patrol. It was built for one thing: absolute destruction. Opening move in high orbit, the Krell commander roared orders. His fleet, already wounded from the first clash, was reforming in a wide net around the human ship. Surround it, he barked. Overload their shields. Tear it apart. Dozens of Krell cruisers closed in, their engines flaring. Carriers launched swarms of fighters, each one armed with plasma torpedoes and rail cannons. The Leviathan's command deck, Captain Elias Rhodes, watched them come. His hands rested calmly on the arm of his command chair. His eyes, cold and calculating, moved across the holographic projection surrounding him. Target acquisition? He asked. Complete, Captain, replied Tactical Officer Harper. All enemy ships in range, prioritizing heavy cruisers. Rhodes nodded once. Fire. The Leviathan did not fire in chaotic bursts like most warships. It struck with precision, long, sweeping beams of blue-white energy that lanced through the void. The beams cut Krell cruisers in half as if they were paper. The Zorathians watching from the surface saw bright flashes in the sky, followed by the glitter of debris falling toward the atmosphere. Then came the Railgun, silent, invisible until impact. Massive hypersonic slugs punched through multiple ships in single shots, sending enemy vessels spinning out of control. Krell fighters swarmed the Leviathan, trying to overwhelm it. But point defense turrets erupted from the human ship's armored hull, filling the space around it with an impenetrable storm of kinetic rounds and energy bursts. Fighters disintegrated before they could get close. The Zorathian reaction in the council chamber. Officers and leaders stood in stunned silence. Is this what humans are capable of? Whispered Counselor Voryn. No one answered. All eyes were locked on the battlefield. They had always thought of themselves as one of the great powers in the galaxy. The Krell had been their equals, brutal equals, yes, but equals. The humans were something else entirely. Karath's claws tapped against the table. His military mind was already working through possibilities. If a single human ship could destroy an entire Krell fleet, what would an entire human armada look like? The Krell counterattacked, but the Krell were not broken yet. From deep space, massive warp signatures appeared. More enemy reinforcements, an entire second fleet, rushed toward the Leviathan. At the head of this fleet was a ship the Zorathians knew well, the Krell flagship Bloodfang. The Bloodfang was a nightmare of armor and firepower. Twice the size of a normal Krell battleship, it had shattered Zorathian defenses in battle after battle. No ship had ever survived a direct engagement with it. Now, it came for the Leviathan. The Krell commander opened a wide-band transmission. His voice boomed across all channels, translated automatically into Zorathian and human language. Unknown vessel. You have interfered in a Krell war. Withdraw now or be destroyed. Rhodes didn't answer. He simply said, "Bring main gun online." The weapon, the Leviathan's central spine, began to glow deep, dangerous red. Energy built up in massive capacitors, feeding into a single forward weapon port. Zorathian sensors screamed warnings. The energy output was greater than anything they had ever recorded. The Bloodfang charged straight toward the Leviathan, its own weapon spitting streams of plasma. The human Dreadnought's shields flared, holding steady. Then the main gun fired. Single lance of crimson energy tore through the void, striking the Bloodfang directly in the center. The blast didn't just pierce its armor, it cored through the entire ship, vaporizing internal decks and detonating its reactors. The Krell flagship exploded in a blinding sphere of fire. Shockwaves. The destruction of the Bloodfang sent ripples through the Krell fleet. Ships broke formation, some retreating, others firing wildly in panic. The Zorathians could hardly believe what they had seen. Their greatest enemy ship destroyed in seconds by a single human shot. Karath felt his chest tighten. By the stars, they've done it. But he also knew that such power came with a message: humans were not just saviors. They were executioners when they chose to be. Contact. The Leviathan moved into a lower orbit above the planet. Zorathian comms lit up with an incoming transmission. "This is Captain Rhodes of the United Terran Navy," the voice said. "We have eliminated the primary Krell fleet in this sector." Zorathian command respond. Karath stepped forward to the console. "This is Admiral Karath of the Zorathian Defense Force. You came just in time." Rhodes' voice was steady. "We heard your distress call. But understand this, we did not come here to rescue you. The Krell have crossed a line, and when that happens, humanity responds." The ground war. While the space battle raged, the ground war was far from over. Krell forces still occupied parts of the capital city. The Leviathan's hangar bays opened, and dark, angular dropships descended through the smoke-filled sky. Each carried squads of human marines in heavy exosuits, their armor bristling with weapons. Zorathian soldiers on the ground watched in shock as the humans landed directly in contested zones. Their movements were swift, brutal, and efficient. They cleared Krell positions in minutes, using weapons that tore through enemy armor like it was paper. Commander Vechlin, fighting near the old government district, saw them for the first time. A human soldier strode through the smoke, a massive rotary cannon spinning in his arms. Krell warriors charged him and fell in seconds under a storm of metal slugs. The turning point. By nightfall, the Krell were in full retreat, both in space and on the ground. The Leviathan's orbital guns hunted fleeing enemy ships, while human marines and Zorathian soldiers pushed them out of the city. For the first time in months, the skies over the capital cleared. Fires still burned, but the endless sound of bombardment was gone. In the High Council chamber, the leaders of the Zorathian alliance stood in silence as Karath opened a secure link to the Leviathan. "Captain Rhodes," Karath said, "you have our thanks. Without you, we would be lost." Rhodes' face appeared on the holoscreen. He didn't smile. "The Krell are not done yet. They will return, and in greater numbers. But now, they know they are not the only predators in this galaxy. The question when the transmission ended, the Council turned to Kuroth. "What do they want from us?" one asked. "Why come now after all these years?" Kuroth looked at the battle-scarred planet outside the window. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I intend to find out." Far above, the Leviathan drifted in. The darkness, silent and watchful. Its mission here was not over. The humans had entered the war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Krell retreat had been sudden, but not chaotic. They had not fled blindly. They had pulled back in formation, warping out to regroup in deep space. That told Admiral Kuroth one thing: they would return. For now, the skies over the Zorathian homeworld were quiet, and the only thing larger than the planet itself was the human warship Leviathan. Its black armored frame hung like a fortress in the void, still glowing faintly from the heat of battle. But to Kuroth, the most dangerous thing about it was not its size, nor its weapons. It was the human commanding it, the man in the chair on the Leviathan's command deck. Captain Elias Rhodes sat in the central chair, looking over the damage reports. The ship had taken several hits during the Krell assault, nothing critical, but enough to leave scorch marks across her armored hull. Rhodes was a man in his late 40s, his face sharp and hard like a blade that had been sharpened too many times. His eyes were cold, but not empty. They held a controlled fire, a mind always calculating, always planning. Around him, his officers worked with practiced precision. Tactical screens flashed with enemy movements from across the sector. Ship schematics updated with repair progress. Crew moved in silence except for the clipped voices of status reports. Rhodes spoke without looking away from the display. Engineering. Patch primary shield generators to maximum efficiency. We may not have long before the Krell return. "Aye, Captain," came the reply. A quiet warning. Lieutenant Harper, the tactical officer, leaned closer. "Sir, the Zorathians have sent a formal request for you to meet with their High Council." Rhodes didn't move. "And what do they want from us?" Harper hesitated. "Gratitude, negotiations, possibly an alliance." The captain's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so sharp. "An alliance implies equality, Lieutenant. Right now, they've seen what we can do. They know better. Should I refuse the request?" Harper asked. "No," Rhodes said. "I'll meet them. But they won't like my terms." Flashback. The order. It had been only 3 weeks ago when the message reached Earth. A Krell fleet had destroyed several Zorathian colonies, pushing deep into their core worlds. Most of the galaxy ignored it. Wars between regional powers were common, but not the United Terran Navy. In a secure chamber beneath the Atlantic Command Center, a small group of senior admirals and intelligence officers had reviewed the report. Rhodes had stood among them, silent as the others argued. Finally, Admiral Saren, head of the Terran Strategic Fleet, turned to him. "Captain Rhodes, the Krell have made a mistake. They've gone too far. This is not a rescue mission. It's an operation to remind the galaxy where the balance of power truly lies." Rhodes had only nodded. Understood. The next day, the Leviathan left dock, her course set for Zorathian space. Back to the present, the dropship carrying Captain Rhodes descended through the burned skies of the Zorathian capital. Even from above, the destruction was obvious. Whole districts reduced to rubble. Defensive towers collapsed, streets scarred with blackened craters. Zorathian soldiers lined the landing platform. Their weapons were lowered, but their eyes followed every movement of the human marines escorting Rhodes. The Terran soldiers moved with perfect formation, armor polished, weapons ready. When Rhodes stepped down the ramp, Admiral Kuroth was waiting. The two locked eyes. "Captain Rhodes," Kuroth said, his voice formal but tense. "On behalf of the Zorathian Alliance, I welcome you to our capital." Rhodes nodded slightly. "Admiral, let's talk." The council meeting inside the high council chamber. The Zorathian leaders were already assembled. Their eyes tracked Rhodes as he entered, some filled with awe, others with suspicion. High Speaker Vorin addressed him first. Captain Rhodes, you have saved our world. Without you, we would have fallen. For that, we are in your debt. Rhodes didn't smile. You're not in our debt. We did not come here for repayment. The councilors exchanged looks. Then, why? Vorin asked. Rhodes stepped forward, his voice steady. Because the Krell Dominion has been allowed to grow too bold. They think they can wage war without consequence. The United Terran Navy exists to remind them and anyone else that there are consequences. An uneasy Offerkroth folded his arms. So you fight them, for your own reasons. Not to protect us. That's correct, Rhodes said without hesitation. But our goals align for now. The Krell are your enemy. They are our enemy. We will continue to destroy their fleets until they understand they cannot win. Councillor Mareth leaned forward. And when they are defeated, will you leave us? Or will the humans simply replace them as conquerors? Rhodes met her gaze without flinching. We are not conquerors. But understand this, if you turn your weapons on us or our allies, you will face the same fate as the Krell. The chamber fell silent. The Krell regrouped far away. Deep in the black between stars, the Krell Dominion was already preparing its next move. The loss of the Bloodfang had enraged their warlord council in the war chamber aboard the new flagship. Doomfang, Krell general, studied hull projections of the Leviathan. It's a Terran ship, one growled. The humans have stayed in their corner of the galaxy for centuries. Why appear now? Another bared his teeth. It doesn't matter why. We will break them as we broke the Zorathians. But even they felt a flicker of unease. The Leviathan had destroyed their most powerful warship in a single shot. To face it again, they would need overwhelming force. Training grounds back on the planet, Zorathian soldiers gathered in ruined squares to watch human marines train. The Terran troops moved with machine-like precision, their weapons heavier and more advanced than anything the Zorathians had seen. Commander Vechlin approached one marine, an imposing figure in dark armor. Your weapons, they cut through Krell armor like nothing. The marine's voice was deep and filtered through. His helmet, they're not designed for Krell armor. They're designed for something far worse. Vechlin frowned. Worse than the Krell? The marine only turned away, rejoining his squad. Nightfall that night, Rhodesy stood alone on the balcony of the council tower, looking out at the city. Fires still smoldered. Distant repair drones hummed through the streets. Kuroth approached quietly. Your ship, the Leviathan. How many more like it does your navy have? Rhodes glanced at him. Enough. Kuroth waited for more, but Rhodes said nothing else. A signal in the dark. Suddenly, both their communicators flared to life. The voice of Lieutenant Harper came through, urgent. Captain, we've detected multiple warp signatures. Krell fleet, massive size. They're not retreating anymore, they're coming back. Rhodes' expression didn't change. How long? Less than 10 hours. Kuroth's claws clenched. That's impossible. They've been waiting, Rhodes said quietly. And now they're bringing everything they have. Preparation, the city erupted into motion. Defense batteries were reactivated. Wounded soldiers recalled to duty. Civilians moved to shelters above. The Leviathan's massive engines flared as it shifted position into high orbit. Fighter bays opened, preparing for launch. In the council chamber, Rhodes gave his only order. Zorathian fleet stays behind our lines. You'll cover civilian evacuation. The Leviathan will take the front. Kuroth stared at him. You plan to fight them alone? Rhodes's voice was calm. Yes, the calm before the storm hours passed. The stars above the planet grew sharper as the night deepened. Then, one by one, they began to vanish, not from clouds, but from the shapes of incoming ships blocking the light. The Krell had returned. And this time, their fleet was more than twice the size of before. In the command deck of the Leviathan, Rhodes stood at the center, eyes fixed on the incoming armada. "Helm," he said quietly, "bring us forward." The human Dreadnought began to move, its vast shadow sweeping over the planet below. The war was far from over. The void of space grew dark and heavy. Above the Zorathian homeworld, the massive Krell armada spread out like a storm of death. Hundreds of warships thrummed with energy, their weapons glowing in the cold blackness. At the center of the storm, the human Dreadnought Leviathan waited silent, unmoving. A fortress against the endless tide. Admiral Kuroth stood in the command chamber on the surface, watching the holodisplay. Every marker was alive with enemy movement. The Krell fleet had returned, stronger, bigger, and more furious than before. "Captain." "Rhodes," Kuroth muttered under his breath. "Show us what you're made of." The first salvo in the command deck of the Leviathan. The atmosphere was calm but tense. "Enemy fleet inbound," announced Tactical Officer Harper, approaching at maximum warp speed. "Shields at full capacity," Engineer Simmons added. "Weapons systems ready." Rhodes stood, hands behind his back, eyes locked on the main view screen. "Prepare the main gun. Target the enemy flagship, the Doomfang." The bridge crew responded in unison. The Doomfang was a nightmare. Twice the size of the destroyed Bloodfang, covered in layers of reinforced armor, and bristling with weapon turrets that could blast entire cruisers to dust. Its glowing red engines pulsed like a beating heart of war. Enemy fleet formation. "Hold steady," Harper said. "No signs of retreat." "Good," Rhodes said. "We'll make sure they don't last." The opening clash, the first volleys erupted across the void. The Krell fired plasma torpedoes and missile salvos, streaking toward the Leviathan like deadly comets. But the human ship's point defense turrets spun up, sending out swarms of interceptors. Each missile exploded, harmlessly before reaching its target. The Leviathan responded with its own firepower. Massive energy beams tore through Krell cruisers, vaporizing them in single strikes. Railguns punched through armor plates like needles, sending enemy ships spinning out of control. Fighter swarms were shredded before they could close in. The Krell counter-but. The Krell were relentless. The Doomfang launched its own massive energy cannon, a beam of burning red that struck the Leviathan's shields with a thunderous explosion. The human ship rocked, alarms blaring throughout the command deck, shields holding at 70%. Simmons shouted, "Return fire." Rhodes ordered. The Leviathan's main gun charged again, glowing brighter than before. It fired a long focused blast that cut through the Doomfang's shields, leaving a jagged hole in the enemy flagship's hull. Boarding party. As the battle raged in space, the Krell launched a desperate boarding attack. Dark warships detached small assault pods. These pods streaked toward the Leviathan's hull, attaching like parasites. Inside the Leviathan, alarms blared. Boarding pods detected on hull sectors 7 through 12. Harper announced. Rhodes nodded. "Deploy Marine squads. Seal all bulkheads." Heavy. Doors slammed shut, cutting off sections of the ship. Armored Marines moved through corridors, weapons ready. In the cold steel passageways, brutal firefights erupted. Krell warriors, fierce and savage, clashed with human soldiers. The Marines fought back with superior tactics and advanced weaponry, slowly pushing the enemy pods back into space. Zorathian support on the planet below. Admiral Kuroth coordinated the Zorathian fleet. "Hold your lines," he commanded. "Protect the evacuations." Zorathian cruisers fired salvos at Krell reinforcements, helping slow their advance. Ground forces pushed forward, clearing Krell positions in the capital city. But Kuroth's eyes were on the sky. The Leviathan was alone against the fleet's core. The turning point hours passed. The battle raged with no sign of slowing. Rhodes paced the bridge, eyes burning with determination. "Main gun ready," Harper reported. "Fire at will. Rhodes said. The beam slammed into the Doomfang's engine array. The flagship shuddered violently as fires broke out across its hull. The Krell flagship's weapons began to fail one by one, the Krell's last. The Doomfang was not defeated yet. Its captain roared orders for a desperate final strike. Massive ion cannons powered up, focusing on the Leviathan's command section. Warning sirens blared on the human ship. Shields at 30%. Simmons warned. Rhodes stared calmly. Divert power to forward shields. Prepare countermeasures. The ion blast hit the Leviathan, knocking out several systems and sending shockwaves through the hull. The final blow, despite the damage. The Leviathan's crew worked quickly to repair critical systems. Main gun charged, Harper said. Rhodes raised a hand. Now. The beam fired again, this time piercing the Doomfang's main reactor. The flagship exploded in a massive fireball, debris scattering in all directions. The Krell fleet faltered. Ships turned to flee or were picked off one by one. Aftermath, the Leviathan drifted among the wreckage, engines humming softly. Back on the Zorathian surface, people watched the stars light up with the final bursts of the battle. Admiral Karath spoke quietly. They fought like monsters, but with honor. Rhodes' voice came through the comms. The Krell have lost this battle, but this war is far from over. The warning Kirov turned to the Council. We owe these humans our survival. But I fear their arrival signals a new chapter for the galaxy. One filled with power beyond our understanding. The Council members nodded gravely. Outside, the stars blinked cold and silent, waiting for what came next. The silence that followed the battle was heavy, almost unnatural. The stars twinkled cold and distant above the Zorathian homeworld, but the planet itself felt lighter. The Krell fleet had been pushed back for now. The smoke from the burning city slowly began to clear. Admiral Karath stood on the observation deck, watching the slow dawn break over the ruined capital. His claws tightened around the railing. They had survived. But the war was far from over. The quiet after the storm below. The city was waking. Survivors emerged from shelters, blinking in the weak sunlight. Fires still burned, but soldiers moved through the streets, restoring order. Commander Veclin led a patrol down one of the main avenues. The signs of battle were everywhere: scorched buildings, shattered vehicles, and the occasional body of a fallen soldier or civilian. We hold this ground, Veclin told his squad. Every inch. The Krell will not take it again. His voice was strong, but inside he knew the truth. The Krell were not defeated. They were regrouping, planning their next strike. And the humans, the Terrans, were here now, a new alliance in the High Council chamber. The atmosphere was tense, but hopeful. Captain Elias Rhodes stood before the gathered leaders, his posture firm. We have pushed back the Krell fleet, Rhodes said. But this is only the beginning. The Krell will strike again, stronger than before. High Speaker Voron nodded. We are grateful for your help, Captain. Our people owe you their lives. Rhodes looked around the room. This war is not just yours or ours. It belongs to every species who values freedom. The United Terran Navy will stay. We will help you rebuild and defend your world. Murmurs of surprise and relief spread through the Council. Admiral Karath stepped forward. This is a new age then. One where we fight together. Training the troops on the ground. Human Marines and Zorathian soldiers trained side by side. Lieutenant Harper observed a group of recruits as they practiced firing drills with human pulse rifles. These weapons are new to you, Harper said. But once you learn, you'll see how powerful they are. Veclin nodded, watching his soldiers adapt quickly. The humans' discipline and technology brought new hope to the weary Zorathian troops. Shadows in the distance, but not all was calm. Deep in the outer systems, Krell scouts reported a new presence, a shadow moving faster than any Krell ship had seen before. Warlord Drak, leader of the Krell forces, snarled as he watched the reports. "The humans brought a monster with them," he growled. "And now it stalks our fleets." The Terran secret on board the Leviathan. Captain Rhodes met with his senior officers in the strategy room. "We have allies," Rhodes said, "but we have enemies hidden in the dark." Engineer Simmons brought up schematics of the Leviathans. "Weapon systems. There's something else," Simmons said quietly. "We have experimental tech on board. Something the Krell don't expect." Rhodes' eyes sharpened. "Then it's time to show them." A sudden attack one night, alarms blared. Across the Leviathan, unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Harper shouted. The ship rocked as a sudden blast hit the shields. "Boarding pods detected." Simmons warned. The crew rushed to defend their home in space. Marines armed with heavy weapons moved to intercept the enemy forces trying to breach. The hull. Fierce combat dark figures moved through corridors, fighting with claws and blades. The humans responded with precision, shooting down attackers with pulse rifles and grenades. Rhodes coordinated the defense from the command deck. "They won't get past us," he said. "Hold the line." The enemy revealed during the battle. A captured Krell soldier revealed new information. "They have weapons of shadow," the prisoner whispered. "Technology stolen from the old galaxy ruins." Kuroth and Rhodes exchanged grim looks. If the Krell use that power, this war will end in fire and ash. Preparing for the next battle, the Leviathan. And Zorathian forces worked tirelessly, repairing ships and rebuilding defenses. Rhodes gathered his officers. "We fight for survival," he said. "But we fight for something more, the future." Hope in darkness as the sun rose again over the battered world. The people looked to the stars with new hope. The Krell may still be strong, but humanity and Zorathians now stood united, a force no enemy could ignore. The tide of war was turning. The battle for the Zorathian homeworld had dragged on for weeks, but the worst was yet to come. The Krell, enraged by their losses, had brought their full might to bear. Every star in the sector shone with the glow of war. The Leviathan stood like a dark sentinel in orbit, its engines humming steadily as it prepared for the fight that could decide the fate of two civilizations. Captain Elias Rhodes watched the holomap carefully. Countless Krell warships were gathering beyond the system's edge, their numbers far beyond what any intelligence had predicted. The Krell had found new allies in the dark corners of the galaxy, creatures and technologies no one had seen for centuries. The enemy's power was growing, and time was running out. "Admiral Kuroth," Rhodes said, his voice calm but firm over the coms. "We must strike first. Waiting will only give the Krell more time to build their strength." Kuroth's voice came back with a mix of hope and worry. "The Council agrees. This is our last chance. We will fight alongside you, Captain." The alliance between humans and Zorathians was stronger now than ever. Both sides knew the price of failure. Earth's fleets had left behind many ships to guard their own territories, so this was a special task force, the best of both races. The Leviathan led the charge, preparing the fleet. The Leviathan's hangars bustled with activity as Terran and Zorathian crews worked side by side. Fighters, bombers, and assault shuttles were loaded with the latest weapons. Engineers double-checked the powerful new energy cannons fitted to the Zorathian cruisers. Lieutenant Harper walked through the hangar, observing the mixed crews. Zorathian warriors exchanged nods with Terran Marines, their differences forgotten in the shadow of the coming battle. "We fight as one now," Harper said quietly to a group of new pilots. Among them was a young Zorathian named Therese, eager but nervous. "I hope I am ready for this," he admitted. Harper smiled. "You are. We all are." The combined fleet moved out of orbit, slicing through space at speeds that blurred stars into lines. The Leviathan took the lead, its vast frame cutting through the darkness like a blade. On the bridge, Rhodes stood watching the approaching Krell fleet. The enemy ships were a living wall of metal, glowing with the red lights of their weapons and engines. The tactical officers marked the enemy formations. "They outnumber us 3-1, Harper reported. "But their formations are tight. We can strike their flanks." Rhodes nodded. "We'll divide and conquer, target their command ships first. If we take out their leaders, the rest will falter." The battle begins. The first shots were fired with brutal force. Energy beams streaked across space, lighting up the void in bursts of color. The Leviathan's main guns roared, blasting Krell cruisers apart with devastating precision. Zorathian cruisers unleashed volleys of missiles, while human fighters swarmed the enemy in twisting dogfights. Explosions lit the stars as ships were torn apart, debris scattering in every direction. But the Krell did not falter. Their flagship, the Shadow Reaper, launched massive ion cannons that disabled several Terran ships. Swarms of Krell fighters overwhelmed parts of the fleet, engaging in deadly close combat. The turning point in the chaos, Rhodes received an urgent report. "Captain, the Krell are activating a massive weapon in the system's outer ring. It could destroy the Leviathan in a single blast." Rhodes clenched his fists. "Can we reach it in time?" Harper checked the tactical maps. "If we make a direct run, yes. But it will cost us dearly." "Then we have no choice," Rhodes said. "Prepare an assault team. I'm leading the strike." The assault squad of elite Terran Marines boarded small assault craft, joined by Zorathian warriors. The assault team sped through space, dodging enemy fire as they approached the massive weapon platform. The structure was enormous, a twisted web of metal and energy, pulsing with dangerous power. The Marines landed on the surface, moving quickly through the dark corridors. Krell guards met them with fierce resistance, but the team fought with unmatched skill and determination. Pulse rifles and energy blades clashed as they pushed toward the weapons control core. Rhodes led the charge, his heavy armor glowing under the dim lights. Each step was a fight, each breath a battle, but the goal was clear: destroy the weapon before it could fire. The final strike at the core chamber. The assault team faced the last line of defense, Krell commanders wielding strange dark weapons. The fight was brutal and desperate. Rhodes fired his rifle, taking down 2 attackers, then charged with his energy blade, cutting through the remaining enemies. The weapon's core began to overload, sparks flying as the team worked to set explosives. With seconds left, the core erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the platform. Back in space, the destruction of the weapon sent a shockwave across the battlefield. Krell ships faltered, their attack losing momentum. The Leviathan and its fleet seized the moment, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. Rhodes stood on the command deck, breathing heavily but proud. "This is our moment. Let's end this." The final battle, the fleet fought with unmatched courage, taking down ship after ship. The Krell flagship Shadow Reaper was cornered. Rhodes ordered the main guns to focus all fire on the Shadow Reaper. The massive enemy ship shuddered under the relentless assault. Finally, with a tremendous explosion, the Shadow Reaper was destroyed. Victory and loss. The Krell fleet retreated in chaos. The combined Terran-Zorathian force had won, but the cost was high. Many ships were lost, and brave soldiers had fallen. Admiral Kuroth stood beside Rhodes on the Leviathan's bridge. "We have won a great victory, but the war is not over." Rhodes nodded. "No, but now we have hope." A new dawn. As the sun rose over the Zorathian homeworld, the people cheered. For the first time in a long while, there was peace. Rhodes looked out the window, knowing this was just the beginning. The galaxy was wide and full of dangers, but humanity and its allies had shown they would fight to the last breath. The final gambit had paid off, but the game was far from finished.